Hey gang. So I want to talk today about, I might do a series on this, the maybe more common things that I see in women our age that we deal with, um, the things that have come up in our body, in our organs. And today I want to be talking about the throat, and the voice. So everything that I'm going to be talking about in this series has to do with Louise Hay. If you've never heard of Louise Hay, she wrote an amazing book called You Can Heal Your Life. She wrote it decades ago, and it's been translated to many languages. I think that the modern equivalent of it is probably a book called The Body Keeps the Score, which I haven't read, but a lot of people have told me about. Um, and I have the feeling that it's kind of on the same wavelength. So if you've never heard of Louise Hay, she was a pioneer in mind-body healing. She was one of the first voices to speak openly about the connection between our emotional world and our physical symptoms. She didn't have any problem with like medical care. It wasn't about ignoring that. It wasn't about blaming the person that had become ill. She simply believed that physical symptoms can sometimes reflect the emotional patterns that we've been holding unconsciously, and that awareness of that and that the self-love is part of the healing process, right? So according to her teachings, the throat is very related to self-expression and truth, our ability to speak, our ability to ask, our ability to set boundaries, our ability to be seen and heard exactly as we are. Okay, so where I've seen this in my own life is my grandmother. My grandmother, towards the end of her life, she had a very hoarse throat, and she would clear her throat a lot, and it got worse over time. And on the phone, she sounded like a man. She would be mistaken for a man. And she got all kinds of tests done to see what it was. And I would say to her, "They're not going to find anything, Grandma. You just need to start talking." And she didn't talk because she found this part of my life, the healer part of my life, intriguing, but she didn't, I guess, really believe in it. So she didn't um, she didn't do what I said that she should do. All kinds of tests. They put cameras down her throat, and the truth is, she was left with a lot of things unsaid. My grandpa died 20 years before she did, and there were things that were unresolved and not said. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into family history, but she also has two daughters with whom she, at different points in her life, was estranged from. And as a person, like, not to take away from her wonderful attributes, but she was resentful of my grandfather and some things that he had done, like not listening to her, and of her daughters who had also maybe taken advantage of her generosity or things like that. She had a lot of things left unsaid. And I would say to her, you can still say them. You can, I mean, come on, I'm talking about the throat and this is happening. I'd say, just, write it out, write it in a letter, speak it in front of the mirror, uh, put an empty chair in front of you and imagine grandpa on that chair and say it to him. And, she just never did. So that to me was a huge example of what happens when you don't speak. Now, when I meet someone and I'm working with them and I immediately get told that there's something about the throat, it could be many things. It could be a conversation that needs to be had with a certain person. It could be a truth that needs to be accepted for themselves, like saying, "I'm gay," to yourself or to your family or to your loved ones. It could be about yeah, telling the world who you are. It could be a specific conversation. It could be as big as just living life truthfully out there, right? So things that have to do with this is no, come on, this is the universe just fucking with me. All right, so I should edit that out, but I think I'm going to leave it in just to show that what self-expression and truth should look like. So I do want to say that even understanding all of the things that come with, boundaries and knowing how to ask and knowing how to speak and all that stuff, I also know that for many people, especially women, silence wasn't a choice. It was a survival strategy. So, from a psychological and a nervous system perspective, throat tension often shows up in those who learned early on that it wasn't safe to express certain emotions like anger and express your needs, express disagreement with someone, especially like with our parents, because then they might get mad, express sadness, maybe even express joy. So, instead of speaking, the body learns how to contain. This is what it did with my grandma. You swallow your words, you manage your reactions, you you keep the peace. And over time, the suppression does not disappear. It settles into the body, right? So a lot of women in midlife are carrying just decades of unspoken truth, not because they were like choosing to be dishonest, but because they were taught to be appropriate, agreeable, accommodating, nice, all that stupid stuff. So go ahead and take a moment. Um, Bring awareness to your throat and just notice. Does your throat feel open, you know, expansive, or does it feel tight? Does it feel relaxed or does it feel guarded? Do you feel a subtle urge to swallow, to clear, to hold your voice? Often the emotional block here isn't about not knowing your truth. It's about questioning whether it's safe to let it move through you. Okay, so Louise Hay often spoke about the throat as a place where life energy wants to flow freely. The more authentically you're living your life, the more clear all of this should be. When that flow is restricted, the body may signal that something inside you is needing to be acknowledged, right? So I'll invite you into a small kind of like embodiment practice. If you feel comfortable, go ahead and place one hand gently on your throat and then one on your chest. Okay. And feel your breath move between these two spaces. Don't force anything. Okay. Just notice. And as you breathe, with one hand on your throat and one hand on your chest, without any pressure to answer this, just ask yourself, where have I been holding back my voice to stay connected or accepted? Another thing you can ask yourself is, what truth feels close to the surface but hasn't been given language yet? Okay. So instead of forcing affirmations, Louise Hay was famous for her affirmations. A lot of people don't like them. I get it. I like to offer language that feels honest and grounding. So you can say to yourself softly, throughout the day, it is safe for me to express myself until you start to believe that. Okay. My voice matters. I don't have to disappear in order to belong, right? Let these words land in your body, not just with your mind. Like, get them to filter down this mind-body connection. And here's the reflection question for you to sit with. If your throat could speak freely, without consequence, without interruption, what would it want you to hear first? You don't need to say it out loud today, but if you want to, you can always leave it in the comments below. If you have a story like my grandma's, if you know someone who's, you know, not like me today, but, clearing their throat, or someone who is not living authentically, and so they have problems in their throat and with their voice, go ahead and leave a comment below. I'd really love to hear um, your insights on this, or what you come away with from this video, having learned, or like an aha moment and all of that. If you enjoy this kind of content, go ahead and subscribe and like and share if you know someone who needs to hear this. In the outro, you're going to find links to my workbooks and to my healing sessions. Go ahead and sign up for that if it feels right. Thank you so much for staying until the end. I'll see you in the next video.